All right, with that, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker tonight. He's our ARRL Southeastern Division Director, Mickey Baker, N4NV. Had the pleasure of meeting Mickey probably several years ago, I guess. I think you were putting up a D-Star repeater down in South Florida, and we had the opportunity to meet. So Mickey has graciously agreed to meet with us this evening. It's probably easier than if you'd come to one of our regular meetings. So we're happy to have you, Mickey, and we'll turn the floor over to you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make you the presenter. So that way you, any screenshot slides, whatever you have, they will be yours. So if you share your screen, it's all yours. Thank you, Mickey.
So that's me. I've been director since the first of the year. I appreciate everyone that voted for me in the election last fall. If you didn't vote for me, I hope that by the time the next election rolls around, you'll vote for me then. This is my contact information. It's on page 15 of QST every month. So that, that's who I am. A little bit about me. I'm originally from the Rome, Georgia area. I went to school at Georgia Tech, and in the 70s. So I'm an older guy. And but I moved to Florida in 1987 to come down here and work for a technology company to actually open a sales office in Fort Lauderdale. But it's been a great I don't know what that is, 33 years here in South Florida. I've been an amateur radio operator since I was 15 years old in 1970, when I was WN4PPI and then WB4PPI. I had to call KC4ZU for a long time when I lived in Atlanta. I don't know who's on the phone here that might have known me back then, but looked pretty much the same. I probably might have had shorter hair back then. This is sort of my COVID haircut, which means no haircut for a long time. So I'm the director. That's sort of what I looked at like a couple of years ago when I paid somebody to make me look good. And my vice director is a fellow named Jim Schilling. We're both elected officials in the Southeastern Division, and that's Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So the Caribbean of the Americas is in our division as well. The way the ARRL works is, it's the National Association of Amateur Radio, and the way that the org chart, and I had an org chart in here, and I thought it was too boring, so I took it out. So there are 15 divisions throughout the United States. In terms of the numbers of members, the Southeastern Division is the largest. There are approximately 15,000 ARRL members in the Southeastern Division. The next largest is the Delta Division, which is just the west of us, and including Tennessee. They have about 12,000 members. And there are actually divisions with only 3,000 members. So it's a little bit inequitable. That's something that I'd like to get fixed at some point in time. But the guys that have 3,000 members, they don't have to worry about much of an election. They just go shake everybody's hand and they get reelected. But maybe we'll be able to address that down the road. The board of directors, there are 15 of us, meet twice a year. We talk all the time. There's a mailing list that's going on. There's probably 10 emails today on the mailing list with us letting one another know what we think about stuff and what we've come across. The board of directors hires everybody. We hire the CEO. Too often this board has fired the CEO. We elect the president Rick Roderick is our current president, and we reelected him in January for 2 more years. My term goes for 3 years. 1/3 of all the directors are reelected every year. And so we run for 3 years. That's how we get to 15 directors. And so everyone stands for election every 3 years. So my next, I'll stand for election in 2022. And unless, God willing, and I stay healthy and having as much fun as I'm having now, I don't know, COVID sort of slowed things down. I would like to run for re-election, but that's a long way down the road. So we count on staff to do a lot of stuff. We are unpaid, we get paid nothing. All the directors and the president and the officers generally get paid the same thing, which is nothing. The CEO does have a salary. The CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, Diane Middleton, is an accountant that works for the league. So that is her job, so she gets a salary. But we don't. The staff generally gets a salary. When you call in and you talk to Norm Frisaro or Dan Henderson or Zach in the lab or one of those folks, they're employees and they get a salary, and it's just a job, just like most of us have, where we work and we earn money, and that's the way it goes. It's a good place to work. The ARRL treats their employees really well, and it's in Connecticut, so the laws in Connecticut are they're sort of like New York and California. They're real beneficial to the employee, so it's an expensive thing to run. We'll talk about that. Whoops, let me come to the right thing. Let me have the right thing. The ARRL is a 501c3 charitable organization. Okay, that means that we are exempt from federal income tax, but we don't do things for profit. I know that probably doesn't jive with what you believe about our books and the way we hawk books at Handfests and that sort of stuff. But really, at the end of the day, we're charitable and we don't make money. You guys probably know the story. The ARRL is founded by Hiram Percy Maxim and Clarence Tuska in 1914. Right now, we have approximately 160,000 members. Now, there are 700,000 amateurs in the United States. So we're only about 22% of all the amateurs in the U.S. I can't see everybody's hands, right? I'd ask for a show of hands of who are ARRL members. Usually in these type of things, I'll find that probably 2/3 of the room are ARRL members. And one of the things I'm going to try to do today is get you to join ARRL if you're not already a member, at least show you the value of it. You might not have $50 to spend on ARRL, but I'll tell you what the value is. We publish 4 magazines: QST, On the Air, QEX, which is an experimentals magazine, and the National Contest Journal. Now, a lot of people have never even looked at a copy of QEX or the National Contest Journal. And I think that's, they're both great magazines, but I haven't really wanted to, pay for these magazines, 6 issues a year. I think they're $20 some odd a year. But as of April this year, you can now download the application and look at and read these magazines online. So you can, on your phone, on your iPad, on your computer, you can download any of these magazines and read them on your device. So I'd suggest that those of you guys are like me, like to, put things together. I've got, stuff all kinds of projects laying around here. I would suggest that you look at QEX. There's a really, one of my favorite articles in the last few months is the Nano VNA project. There's a lot of people writing about how to use the Nano VNA in QEX right now. So that's a good publication. In the National Contest Journal, there's a lot of links in there to places to how to run a contest and how to work on a contest. But I've seen your field day results. You guys don't need any of that. You guys, that's field day stuff. That was great. You guys did really well with the things we did to set that up. Of course, if you haven't listened to ARRL Audio News, it's a once a week amateur radio news. A lot of towns run that on one or more repeaters. It's set up to run on a repeater. It has a dotted I in it, a K, so that you'll know when to pause it to let the audio drop so the repeater resets. I can't hear you guys, so I suppose you're all muted. If you want to send me a note in the chat and ask me anything, just say in the chat. I'm watching the chat. Should have said that up front, right? Don't do a whole lot of go to meetings, but you know, in fact, this is my first meeting on GoToMeeting. Most people are using Zoom, or this morning actually I did a WebEx. So we're membership run. I cover this a bit. Directors and vice directors have committee responsibilities and succession. So if I were to get hit by a truck or win the lottery and resign, I probably wouldn't resign if I win the lottery, but then James Schilling would take over. And James Schilling has already had COVID-19, and he's recovered from it well, and so he's okay. So if I get it and something happens to me, he's good to go. I think we covered this, but we have fiduciary and strategic duties. It is our job as directors to run the organization. That's a good thing and a bad thing. A lot of organizations have boards of directors that run the organization, but at the ARRL, it's become culture so that the directors are probably, we are definitely more involved than the staff wants us to be. But it's interesting in that the lawyers and the way that ARRL set up is we do have fiduciary responsibilities. That is the money that comes through the ARRL. We have to vote on where it goes and, you know, keep us nonprofit. Staff, everybody works for the CEO. He's the top staff member. And the membership also votes for section managers. I guess you guys know David Benoist, who's the Georgia section manager. And he's a good guy. I like David, but of course I can't vote for him. But the membership in the state of Georgia, the section, voted for David, and he runs for election every 2 years. And he reports to a fellow at in the field organization called Steve Ewald. I mean, you know, there's no money here. You don't do performance reviews or anything like that. But he goes to Steve Ewald to get resources. Of course, he goes to me and talks to me, and I can shake things loose where sometimes he can't. But they are in charge of the field organization operationally for every section. For example, David runs ARRLs and makes all the field appointments, you know, the section emergency manager, those sort of things. So just quickly, why did ARRL, why are we successful as being the voice of amateur radio? In World War I, amateur radio was suspended. They told everybody, okay, no more transmitting, your licenses are no longer valid. So 4,000 of us went off and served the military as radio operators. And then when the war ended and everybody went home, the Secretary of the Navy at the time refused to admit amateurs back. And they said, oh, so we're just going to get rid of this ham radio stuff. Well, there was a big outrage. And ARRL, Tuska, and actually it was Maxim at the time, organized it. We got Congress on our side, and they actually reversed the decision of the Secretary of Navy, and all radio was under the Secretary of Navy. And in 2000 or in 1919, they turned amateur radio back on. So 101 years ago, amateur radio was turned down for 2.5 years, and it came back on. If the ARRL had not existed at the time, might not be any amateur radio today. So that's a piece of history that you got to know. There's my vacant slide. What do we do? The number one thing that ARRL does is spectrum protection. So we have several lawyers in Washington on retainer. We no longer have an employee there, but we have people that base their practice on spectrum protection. They have worked for the SEC, they're ex-FCC employees, and they know how the administrative law things work for the FCC, and they are the people that oppose spectrum grabs, and there are a lot of them. There's one going on right now about Ford Motor Company. Ford wants to take most of the 3.3 megahertz band and turn it into some sort of car safety protection. They're saying it's for the safety of motoring, the motoring public, but they have patents for it, and they're not talking about what their patents are. It looks like if they were doing for the safety of the motoring public, they would simply just tell everybody what it was, but they won't. The things like that are going on all the time, and that's where our big money is. You know, we have these regulatory issues, and when you have, I don't know if you guys know about WARC. WARC is a once every 3-year frequency allocation conference, World Allocation Radio Conference. It's where they look at where do you allocate bands. You may remember for years, some of you guys are as old as me, been around a long, know that bands like 60 meters and 17 meters and 30 meters and 12 meters are called the WARC bands, because we got those one year when we successfully negotiated those away. HF bands are pretty easy to negotiate. There's not a lot of demand with satellite communications for HF bands, but where we're worried about things are UHF and VHF and microwave. Allocations that we have there are very, very valuable for line of sight communication. And the big grab right now is for 5G. The way that cellular 5G will work is it will work on any number of frequencies. And the more congested a metro area is, the more frequencies that they'll want. ARRL does government public relations. We roll up news stories. There's a section on the website you can see. You can go view every news story that we know has been broadcast on TV, is available on the internet. We put a reference to that on our website. If you have one in your area, you can write me or write at ARRL or write David Benoist, and we'll get it published. The big thing that we need more membership for is to oppose the spectrum appropriation. Other things we do a lot of other things. ARRL Lab, you know, too bad we're not more interactive, but I'd like to know how many of you guys have ever called the ARRL Lab. You know, the ARRL will answer your questions about just about anything. You know, most people says, well, gee, in order to be a successful ham, you got to have a good Elmer. A lot of people, like when I grew up out in the country. I didn't have an Elmer within 50 miles. You know, I did have a guy that sort of helped me out, but he was 50 miles away. So you have to, sometimes you have a question, you have a problem with an antenna, or you have RFI problems. So you want to know, who do I call about this? But you can call the ARRL in Newington, Connecticut. If you're a member, we'll talk to you and help you with your problem. If you're in the wrong though, regulatory issue, we'll tell you, hey, look, you know, really you're operating outside the frequency. You know, we had one guy that set up on a band edge, you know, using lower sideband, and he got a citation for operating it, you know, below his authorization. But he was actually turned his transceiver on the band edge and it was transmitting on lower sideband. So he ended up in the CW portion of the band. He complained, and we couldn't help him because he was in the wrong. But he didn't get a fine or anything. He just got a note. We have educational services. I'll talk about that a little more if you want to, but we have the Teachers Institute, called the RF Teachers Institute, that we run twice per year in normal years, but we haven't run it this year because of COVID-19. That's where we bring in secondary school teachers, middle school, high school teachers, and teach them about ham radio from the ground up. And by the end of the week, they have built a receiver and hopefully they've earned their tech license that week. Have all sorts of membership and volunteer programs. ARRL is one of them. We have the volunteer monitor program. A lot of you guys remember the whole program for the OO program, where people would send you a ticket if you're doing something wrong or doing something right even. But that's been deprecated, and the new program is the volunteer monitor program. Some of you listening to me now may be volunteer monitors. I don't know. There's no list of them. It's a confidential thing. When someone, the way the volunteer monitors work is you call someone at the ARRL, complain about a interference problem or intentional interference problem, or just people doing strange things over there, cursing over there, that sort of thing. And we assign that issue to a volunteer monitor. The volunteer monitor monitors it and then is trained to write a legal case on it. Date, time, frequency, recording, any direction finding involved, the repeater used, that sort of stuff. And then that goes to the FCC. We have a liaison at the FCC that takes these, and then it's assigned to the FCC field office if appropriate. And they make a case and give people citations for it and fine them. ARRL, of course, is a big member service, and John told me that you guys had some questions about ARRL Connect. We can run through this real quickly, and you guys can ask all your questions. And we are the world's largest amateur volunteer exam coordinator. The ARRL does 70% of the licenses in the United States. Logbook of the World. Logbook of the World is one of my favorite things ARRL does. I am actively involved in some improvements to the Logbook of the World. I'll tell you what I think about that. Some of you guys might have seen what I wrote last week in logbookoftheworld.groups.io. So that sort of gave you a hint where we're going with this. And we still have outgoing and incoming QSL bureaus, and the costs of those are the same they've been for 20 years. After a cost increase, we rolled it back down. Awards. I bet a lot of people here have DXCC and worked all states. Myself, I'm 3 CW QSOs, 3 states away from triple play. That's worked all states in 3 modes, and it's three in CW. And I have just not had the time to go run down the QSO parties for those 3 states. Actually, I did for one, and I thought I had Maine, and I worked 3 stations during the W1 QSO party, and I haven't been QSO'd by any of them, so got to go figure that out. Club services. We help clubs do things like advertise their Handfest. And you guys have a great Handfest. I was there last year, and I know we're all going to miss it this year. So what does all this cost? 2020, it will cost us about $13.4 million to do all this. Pay the staff, keep the building open, run W1AW, all those things we do. A membership is $49. If all of our members paid the full boat $49, that's $7.8 million. But the problem is people like me who paid for my life membership in the 1970s, I paid $240 for a life membership. So we don't get that $7.8 million. So it's really, we get about $6.8 million on that. Okay, this is all in our annual report. So we publish an annual report, and it's in our IRS filing, which by law we have to make our IRS filings public. So publications, contributions, and interest on our investments make up the difference in that, and that's the way we can stay afloat. But this year, 2020, we are going to run a 1.2 million or more deficit. That means we'll have to go into our savings and pull out $1 million too. We're sitting on about $30 million worth of savings for the life of our ARRL. It's a 100-year-old organization. 20 years ago, it was almost down to 0. And through good fiduciary practice, they've saved $30 million over 20 years, which is great. I wish I could do that. I bet most of us do. So I don't really want to go in there, but this is my plug. If you're not a member, join. Why not? Your $49 doesn't pay the cost of the ARRL. $13.2 million, $6.8 million of it are dues. So you can only 22% of members are ARRL members. There's all sorts of ways to contribute. Diamond Club is a way to contribute. I belong to Diamond Club. Every year I send them more than a membership just as a contribution, so that I feel like I'm paying my way. We have scholarships. You can fund the scholarships, or if you want to remember us in your legacy endowments, if you're a wealthy person, like I know some of you probably are, you could remember us in your legacy endowments. Give the radio club all your radio gear, your towers, and send us a little bit. But it sounds like the club's got the brick taken care of. So I could go on and talk about me. This is just basically what I've done. I was the guy that kept bringing this back to the Programs and Services Committee for Field Day. I was told no twice. And I took the messages from the contesting, ARRL contesting.groups.id, groups.io, and I copied 400 emails complaining about us not doing anything about Field Day. I sent it to all the members of the committee, and I said, if you don't consent to have a meeting and change this, it's on you. And 2 days later, we had a meeting and we got those Field Day rules changed. I've got a DX rule change that I hope will be approved by the full board this week to restrict propagation shopping using multiple remote stations. Those of you guys who are DXers know about this. There's several companies out there that sell you time on these huge remote stations located in some very low noise rural area, and they connect it to the internet, and they allow you to jump on their station. And when there's a de-expedition, the bands are crowded with these stations. Everybody running full boat kilowatt with high gain antennas at 200 or 300 feet, and there's just no competing with those guys. So the people that are getting DXCC these days are getting all the de-expeditions. A lot of them are doing this to beat people like me and you that have a meter station to get the stations. So, and what they're doing is they may look at 4 or 5 different receivers to find the best path to the DX, and then they switch to that, and then they work the DX. Okay, so that is, a lot of people have complained about that, especially people near the top of the honor roll. They're going to lose their position. I have some friends that might be on this call today that complained to me about it. So I'm initiating a rule change to stop that. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to require that the DXer be within 200 kilometers of their station. They can use remote, but they have to be within, remote has to be within 200 kilometers of the station. And we have some other exceptions as well to allow the people that live in apartments and have HOAs to use a remote station. So it's a fairly complicated rule. During the Q&A, I'd be glad to get into it. So 6 months in, I talked to the interim CEO every few days about a couple of IT projects that are basically, not progressing well because basically they weren't planned well. And if you guys want to know the truth of it, in my opinion, that's why Howard Nickel is no longer the CEO of ARRL, because he bought all this software and initiated all these projects and made no plan to manage them. So that would get your job thrown out of just about any job. John, can we do Q&A? Do you guys want to do Q&A? How do we do that?
I'm going to unmute everyone. Bill Grimes, I'm getting a lot of audio from you.
Well, this year with everybody operating from home, I imagine most everybody was operating with normal power, even though there's a few diehards in there that'll turn off the power and switch on the generator just for fun.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a field day police to go to everybody's house and check out what they're doing, but what we would like to, the real,
It's just about summertime for me, so this is going to be my final. Brother, I'll be in prayer for you, and you be sure to pray for me, and let's set up a QSO like this real soon.
I muted, well, let me see. I think I muted everyone.
It's great, thanks for the chat anyway,
Hang on, just, Mickey, are you hearing me?
I am hearing you. I'm hearing the QSO going.
Yeah, we've got Bill Grimes. Bill Grimes, if you can hear us, turn off your radio or mute your station. All right, I manually muted him. I think we have a lot of stations who have muted on their own. If you have a question for Mickey, unmute your station and ask a question.
I have a question. This is K4GTR.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yes, I had sent an email off to the ARRL, speaking of quick responses, and I did. This was to Dan Henderson, and he responded. But my question was about the House bill for basically helping us out who live in HOAs. And he mentioned, well, I noticed what I had looked on the House website is that this bill was reintroduced in the House back in January 2019, but it doesn't appear there's been any traction to it. And now that Bill Nelson is gone from Florida, yay, we at least have a clear path in the Senate, but I haven't seen anything. The House hasn't done squat. They're working on everything else but this. And so then I sent this off to Dan. Dan said the bill was reintroduced without consulting the ARRL. Not sure why that was truly necessary, because I know there was some extensive work with CC&R, legal advisors, and ARRL and everything else. Anyway, he said later in January, the new board of directors withdrew support for ARPA. We're still waiting for their new alternative proposal. For more information, contact your ARRL division director. So
that's me.
Here we go.
I'll tell you what's going on. Okay, let me tell you what's going on. So we have 3 lawyers that are on the board of directors that have a committee that they're basically what they're doing is they're throwing stuff against the wall and see what sticks. And by that, I mean, they're going out and talking to congressional liaisons, people in that work for senators and in the House of Representatives, and they're trying to figure out what we can do. What would you support? The obvious problem with the Amateur Radio Parity Act as written, one of the biggest critics of that was a guy named Fred Hockengarden. And Fred Hockengarden is now the director from the Northeast. So he criticized it, demanded it be withdrawn, and this is why. Because with the ARPA as designed, you could have gone to your HOA and said, I demand, you have to give me an antenna. And they could have told you, and this would have probably been the dodge. They said, okay, you can put up a quarter wave on 440 megahertz. Okay, so that's this tall. And that could be the entire, and that would be accommodation according to that law. So that was a bad law. I'm glad it didn't pass. If you'll send me an email at informb@arrl.org, I will send you a copy of Fred's argument why it shouldn't have passed. Now, okay, we've done that. What do we do now, right? So the committee has proposed 3 different things. The first thing is an extension of the over-the-air reception devices rule, OTARD. You guys know about OTARD? I was getting a lot of blank stares. Well, there's basically.
I know about PRB1.
Right. PRB1 doesn't apply to HOAs because the legal theory is that your deal with the HOA is a covenant between you and your HOA, and government doesn't like to interfere with these contracts that you have with your HOA. But they've
Which
done
you're
it.
forced to do when you want to buy that place, because you can't get a place without an HOA in about 95% of the communities.
Agreed.
Now, the OTAR you're talking about, is that where the FCC mandated, look, we don't want the cable companies and DirecTV and Dish Network to be monopolies. We want you to be able to put an outside antenna to pick up rich HD television.
That's
Is
exactly
that what you're talking about? Okay,
yeah,
great.
You can put up a satellite dish, you can put up a TV antenna, you can put up a number of things, but those are limited in size. I'm sure the amateur radio version of that would be limited in size and scope as well. So we're trying to get extensions of that. In fact, there is a OTAR rule extension written and ready to go for someone who's willing to take it on. That was as of January. I know they've had meetings with several congressional offices, and they, the congressional offices we talk to don't want to take anything on this year. It's an election year. They feel like the thing is going to change next year. We're going to be dealing with completely different people. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, everybody's thinking everything's going to change. So they're not willing to do this. If anyone here on the call has a contact in a congressional office or a senatorial office, let me know, and I will have the president of the ARRL, who is an attorney, he's a very well-spoken, smart guy, reach out to that office and make an appointment with him and go to Washington to visit with him, and that's what we'll do. We'll try this. The other idea besides OTAR is something I call the go for broke approach. If we find some friendly congressperson somewhere that is willing to sponsor this bill, it's basically PRB1 for everybody. I personally think that's a hope and a wish. I don't think that's going to fly in most states. Probably won't in Florida again, because honestly, it's like it is in Georgia for new homes. Everything down here is HOA. I live on 5 acres in the country where you can have 5 horses and a barn and shovel manure out of it every day. And there's a rule in the HOA that says I can't have an antenna. But I got a waiver from them. I approached them, they gave me a waiver, so I've got an 89-foot tower and a bunch of wire antennas. So you can negotiate these things. Okay, so those are 2 of the things. The third approach is to approach your state government and ask for the state legislature to make an exception for amateur radio. That has been done in Texas, and that has been done in Oklahoma. It has not been done anywhere else that I'm aware of. So that we do have sample legislation. If someone knows somebody in the state legislature, we'd be willing to work with them and try to get something done in Georgia, because you guys are my guys, and if I can help you in any way, I'll get you copies of the stuff that's passed in Texas and Oklahoma, and that is pretty much PRB1 for everybody. So if you have safety concerns, you probably know how to get by, but if you basically want depending on the size of your lot, want to put a tower up, you can. For example, where I live in Palm Beach County, Florida, I live in Palm Beach County, it's a big urban county. I live out here in the corner of it where it's all farms. You
live in the acreage?
No, I live north of the acreage. I live in a place called Colusa.
Okay.
On Beeline Highway up near Pratt Whitney. But,
okay, I know where that is.
Yeah, but in the acreage, there's no HOA. So they're 1.2 acre properties, and you can put up a tower. I know a guy that in the acreage that has a 105-foot guide tower. That's a little bit nuts, but he's 20 foot higher than mine. It's guide.
Well, I do have. You were asking about a politician. I do have a prospective politician, Clinton Dixon, who is running for state senate in Georgia. I had a half-hour conversation with him, and one of the things I did bring up with him was about this Amateur Radio Parity Act and explaining what amateur radio operators do. And he had a pretty good understanding of what amateur radios actually do. especially with regards to emergency communication and the validity of that. And he said, hey, if I get elected, call me up and we'll talk. So he seemed to be very interested and certainly was not closed off to this, very open-minded about it. And like I said, had a decent understanding of what we do as amateur radio operators, which I thought was very encouraging.
Good. I got his name. Let's see if he gets elected. That's great.
Yep.
Any other topics you guys want to talk about? Questions about what's going on at the ARRL, why we're doing what we're doing, why we fired the CEO, why we're trying to hire another CEO, and that's still going on. I don't know why they can't. There's a committee doing that too.
I'm sorry.
Norm, go ahead.
Yeah. What's the situation with headquarters and who's working and how is it staffed? How is the health situation or the virus situation working with the ARRL headquarters?
So the state of Connecticut is allowing half the staff to come back and work. We did furlough some employees. We essentially paid everybody, okay, that didn't work. The way we paid for that was PPP money. So we got one of those federal loans that said that it's going to be forgiven if we use the loan to pay our employees. So that we did that, and that's how we're paying our employees for that working. Everybody is working from home. We did set up enough network and enough capacity and gave everybody a notebook that we had, and we gave out 60 some odd notebooks, and people are working from home. You should be able to reach anyone at ARRL by dialing their extension. And someone told me they talked to Dan Henderson, so I know they're I talked to Dan today. So yeah, you can reach those guys, but just call them. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yes, you did. Thanks.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Of course, Handfests is near and dear to our hearts, and I had to cancel ours. We had a lot of issues that really were not in our control. The fairground was not going to provide anything that could help us in protecting people. Our insurance, which the insurance company we use is the same company that most ham clubs use. Where do y'all see Handfest going? I know there's a virtual one coming up, and I think that's going to be a great thing to try, but where do you see the Handfests going, or has there been a discussion because the added cost of being able to protect your volunteers and your visitors is pretty much astronomical. So what has there been some discussions about that, Mickey? And if so, could you share that with us?
There have been, but I can't tell you that we've got that figured out. We have. And Mike, I got your message about canceling Handfest, and I hated it. It's a great Handfest. But 2 days later, I got a note from the Melbourne, Florida Handfest that said we're going to have our Handfest. And I talked to the organizer of that Handfest, and the difference is that I know that the fairgrounds are private property and it's a private organization. And you have to have liability insurance in case somebody gets hurt there. You don't have to worry. You have to worry about that sort of thing on private property. What the Melbourne people have, they have it at the City Auditorium in Melbourne, which is public property. And as long as they keep the occupancy down to 1/2 of its certified occupancy, they're going to go ahead. But that doesn't mean that people are not going to get sick, right? And they have the same liability insurance that you do. It is league insurance. I checked. You guys have it, and they have it. It's the same company. And again, all I know is that you have it or you don't have it. I don't know any details about it. But they're going to take a jump, and because it's city property, they feel like they're going to be somewhat indemnified about it. You know, I asked the guy, have you talked to a lawyer about this? Oh yeah, we got, so everybody has to make their own risk questions. Quite honestly, the ARRL wants to have just an aside, they want to have a face-to-face meeting with the candidates for CEO. I'm down here in Florida, and they said, we're going to have a meeting where there's no, you know, where code is not a problem. Well, how do I get there? You know, if it's 2,000 miles away, if I have to drive to Nebraska or somewhere, you know, I'm gonna have to drive to Nebraska. I'm not gonna get on an airplane right now. Forgive me, I know you guys probably got airline employees in the audience. And you know, it's just a dangerous situation. So I respect what you did. It took a you know, prudent thinking to do that. The guys you know, guys are going to do it in Melbourne. I understand the Dalton guys are going to do their swap thing in September that they do at Prater's Mill, but that's an outdoor event. So I don't know. I don't have any answers for that, but it's a real problem. There are two virtual Handfests on the calendar. One is the guys out on the West Coast are doing that one that you probably know about, and DX Engineering sent out a notice that they had a Handfest in their parking lot last year. It turned out to be really well attended, and they're going to do it virtual this year. So they'll be announcing that in the next few days. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I
I
appreciate that. There's just no magic bullet to this thing, but we're going to keep trying. So thank you, Mickey. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Mickey, did I understand that Orlando has said they'll be on for February?
Currently, that's the choice. You know, that could change. I talked to the guys one of the guys that runs that Handfest yesterday, and you know, that's what they're thinking now, but it could change. That's going to be the ARRL National Convention. That's you know, last year they had 24,000 people come to that Handfest, so it'd be it's a big, terrible thing. It'd be like Dayton canceling, and it could cancel. But as of right now, they're going forward. I'm sorry, Ruth and Sharon. I don't know which you are.
I have a
Ruth.
question. Ruth Camporello. I'm not sure if you're involved in this at all, but I was just wondering if you know the status of the ARRL Foundation scholarships. Normally they're announced the middle of June, and I haven't seen anything at all anywhere. I'm sure that got delayed because of COVID and whatnot, but I was just curious.
And there's an item on the ARRL board meeting is this week. It's on Friday of this week. And there's an agenda item about that. And I thought, you know, I'm just, from what I've heard from people that are on the foundation, that you know, people are being notified now about that. Okay. Have you applied for scholarship?
Yes.
Good. I hope you get it. Thank you, Ruth.
All right. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Oh, you guys are easy.
Good presentation.
Thank you, guys.
Well, I've got one. When folks pay their $15 for exam fees, does ARRL get any of that? And if so, how much?
Typically, we get $10, and the club can take money to reimburse their expenses up to $5. So yeah, typically the ARRL gets $10 for that. Does that answer your question?
Yep. All I needed to know.
Okay.
Just let me chime up for a minute here. I'm the VE team leader for the Gwinnett Amateur Radio Society. And Dallas, I don't know if you're aware of this. We actually are a W5YI VE team. And we have to we only charge $14, and we send 7 of that to W5YI for them to cover their administrative costs. And then we use the other 7 to pay for the printing of exams, the paper, the toner, the postage. We priority mail everything. So it turns out to be a wash. I don't know if that might have been where you were going with that or not.
No, it wasn't so much wanting to know where that was going, but was, trying to do the math on the contributions and Diamond Club and scholarships and all that on where all the ARRL's money is coming from and going to.
Yeah, the VEC it loses money every year. So we keep track of what different organizations make or don't make. And that's at $15. And honestly, some clubs send us more, some, but the floor is $10 per test. And that's not profitable. We have 4 employees in the VEC. Things the VEC does other than the exams is if you have a license renewal come up, you'll get a postcard and they'll renew your license for you and that sort of stuff. So that's, they'll do that if you remember whether you've taken your exam with us or not. One of the many services that you don't know about until somebody tells you about it, right? But yeah, the big thing is spectrum protection. And honestly, if you have an issue with your station, a technical issue, and you don't know where to start, call the lab. Just call them, ask to speak to somebody in the lab, tell them you have a problem, send them an email. Send me an email, I'll send it to them. I like talking to those guys. They're a bunch of engineers like me. I like to talk to those guys.
Mickey, we had, before it was fashionable to have online meetings, we had a virtual program from ARRL headquarters, and Joe gave us a tour of W1AW, and that was a very popular program we had, so we appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate you. If you ever go to the Hartford, Connecticut area, if you call me, I'll make sure you get the VIP treatment. And you'll probably get the VIP treatment anyway, because, members are who we are. We are all ARRL guys. All of you guys are members, and the guys that are not, you're still benefiting from ARRL. So we'll be glad to help you any way we can. And it's a cool thing. I've operated it. It's a great thing. I got elected to director, and I made a phone call. Can I come out there? Oh yeah, man. I got there. There was a position for me. What frequency do you want to operate? It was just all ready to go. But it's a good experience. It's the way you get a big pile up. It happens every time.
We've had a couple of folks that have operated, and we know when they're going to be on, or they post something out, and we all try to get a hold of them when they're up there. Paul, W4KLY, has been I'll say frequent. Any more than one is a frequent visitor, and we've all tried to make contact with him when he's up there.
Good. It's fun.
I have another question.
Yeah, one more. Who's that? Kevin?
Yeah, this is Kevin K4GTR.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, excellent. With regard to 60 meters, 5 megahertz, 472 kilohertz, the 600 meter band, and the 2200 meter band, with some of those, like for 60 meters, do you anticipate that we might be able to get some more allocation there instead of individual channels, possibly a complete band there, a little bit more flexibility on that one? And then for the 600 and 2200 meter band, do you anticipate any higher power capabilities, or is that still going to be limited by the power companies with their PLC networks?
Right now the power companies are in charge of the the ULF stuff. So I've filled out the form and I have permission to do that, and I've never heard anybody on the band. So I guess you have to arrange a QSO. But as far as 60 meters goes, that was discussed at WARC this past winter. There was a WARC actually in Egypt in January, and it turns out that region that the U.S. could, the FCC could give us the legal limit on 60 meters with an order. The only user in the world of 60 meters besides amateur radio is a weather service in Italy that they do the WeFax maps. So yeah, I've looked into this, and that should be done. But it's going to take a notice of rulemaking, a petition to the FCC, notice of rulemaking, that sort of stuff. And they're willing to do it. It's just a matter of getting it in the queue.
Gotcha. Okay.
Great, man.
Mickey,
Yes.
this is Randy Collins. Thank you for the wonderful program. And I've got a question. I am fascinated by LOTW. Does the league run that, or they contract it out?
It is run by the league. It sits on a league server in a rack space data center. So it's in a data center. It is a single server. It's a small single server. We do run it. I know a lot about that. No changes really have been made with Logbook of the World itself since 2017, because there were a couple guys working on it and they left the league, and so they haven't had people to work on it. We have 2 requisitions in the pipe right now that we're going to hire people to do that and make some changes. The first thing we're going to make is we're going to fully implement the location piece, so that the location stuff that you put in, we get a little bit technical here, that you put in TQSL, where you put your location in there, that's going to go through. We're going to be able to tell where you are and where your contact is, so that, if somebody changes locations for like Logbook of the World, if you move, you have to make all QSOs goes between 50 miles from your other. If you move from one place to another, it has to be within 50 miles. So we'll be able to compare stuff like that. But there is a larger initiative that is going to go forward called Logbook of the World 2.0. And what we're going to do is we're going to have this is going to be part of our website redo, so that everyone who's active at the ARRL website has access to a radio support portal. And it gives you not only Logbook of the World, but gives you access to the DXCC list and news events, things. You list your interest, and we'll give you a targeted list of things that apply to you. If you're a contester, we're going to give you the expeditions and the latest rare things we've seen. QSL, like P5 shows up, we'll alert everybody P7, that sort of thing. But it's going to be a more personalized approach when you log in. That basically, that's the next step of Logbook of the World. But the Logbook of the World is on a enterprise quality server. I actually got involved with this in 2013 when I worked for the vendor that made the server when it failed in 2013. And we got that fixed. It is right now, the database is an old technology database. It's not on anything that, and if anybody here works for SAP, I'll be wrong, but it's on an old SAP type database. It's from 2000 when they made this decision. I think somebody worked for SAP and they stole the database. I don't know. But it's expensive, to run that proprietary database in a data center where we pay for the rack space. But it's there, and it's fairly reliable. In fact, we're seeing about 4 nines, 99.99% uptime, and all the planned downtime is it's over there on the left-hand column on the notifications when you log on to Logbook of the World. So, it's getting better. Does that fully answer your question? Probably too much.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, sir. Thanks for the good questions, guys. It was good to meet y'all. I've met some of you guys. I've seen you at Handfests and stuff. But hope to see you again at a Handfest soon. I got to tell you, this is getting one of the reasons I took the job. Oh boy, it's like they pay my expenses to go to Handfests all over the country. Dalton was the last one I went to.
So it's your fault, you're telling us.
No, I guess. And someone asked, John asked about how many Aries guys do we have? We have a lot of Aries guys. Well,
Generally,
there
about
are,
half of our membership, well, I won't say half, but at least a quarter to a third of our membership are also part of our local Aries group in Gwinnett County.
well, before the meeting started, we were talking, and we have made an offer to an AMCOM manager, finally, after 2 years of that job being open. If they take it, they'll start immediately, as soon as they can work notice on their current job. The first order of business is to look at Aries Connect and look as it, how we get the information out of it and get it moved to another piece of software. We are open to input as to what that's going to be short term, long term. It's going to be part of this entire revamp of ARRL software that we have in mind right now. The short term, we've got to get something that works and works for everybody. I've taught your section emergency coordinator is Dean.
Frank Dean.
Yeah. Do you know his wife passed away?
Yeah.
Sad. But yeah, he's a good guy, and he's on top of this. There was a guy, is his name Evan? The guy that works on Logbook of the World, works on Aries Connect here. Y'all have your own software? No?
Well, we had our own system that we're using statewide, but I'm not sure who coordinates that now under David Benoist.
Okay. I met the guy in Dalton. I can't place this name right now. Probably should have reviewed that.
There's Hal, our local emergency coordinator. Hal, you've got that buzz on your audio. Did you have a question for me?
Oh, no, I was going to say, I guess the person that works on the local Georgia Aries database is Jim. Is that the one you're talking about, our local Georgia database?
Yeah.
I don't know who it was. Someone has made a lot of changes here.
Al, can you mute? Thank you.
He must be by an airport or a lawnmower. But I don't know. That name doesn't sound familiar. I could look it up, but if you really want to know who it is, send me an email and I'll look it up. If you guys want, if I can help you in any way, and except loan you money, I don't loan money. Send me a phone call. Or call me or send me an email. I am trying to make sure that nothing sits for 3 days. So 72 hours, you don't hear from me, it's fair to call me again. I get a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, but please don't let that stop you.
All right, if there's no other questions for Mickey, thank you very much for joining us. Like you said, we hope to see you at a Handfest soon. And we appreciate what you're doing in your role as the Southeastern Division Director. And we look forward to very positive things.
Thanks, John, for the opportunity to talk to you. Good to meet you guys. 73.
Okay.